Good evening. Welcome to the October 27th, 2020 work session for the Board of Supervisors. First thing on our agenda is the presentation and discussion from the property owners of Shenandoah Farms Sanitary District. And we've got a group of people that are going to be talking and being concerned about the whole thing. So I'll turn it over to POSF and let them get started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ralph Rinaldi. I'm the chairman of POSF Inc. We're going to approach this as a team approach tonight. There'll be speakers that will all handle a certain topic. And I would like to introduce the speakers now, and then I'll call them up in between the speakers. So after speaker one speaks, I'll get up and call the next person. Joe Longo is sitting right here. Bruce Boyle is right here. Jonathan Oakes is behind me. Sarah's right there. Patrick Skelly, you've seen him a few times. And those individuals will be making the presentation. We also have Lisa Blansett here, our office manager, and she has all the documents that if we need to pull them up to clarify something, she has all that. So she's going to be the librarian tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. He's going to give you the history, the how and why it all came about. With that, I'll pass it off to Joe.
My name is Joe Longo. I live at 195 Old Oak Lane in Shenandoah Farms. I want to give you the history that I have been involved in. Shortly after I moved to Shenandoah Farms, Larry Brinkman told me he met with Mr. Young and Mr. Flynn before their bankruptcy to try and salvage the community that they had built. They had very little money coming in for maintenance, and weather events and time had destroyed most of the amenities they had built into the community. They hired a lawyer and formed POSF Incorporated, a not-for-profit POA corporation. The deeded fees, lots of volunteer help, and donations allowed them to keep the community together. Larry was the first POSF board chairman. Roads and facilities continued to deteriorate over the years, and many people quit paying their deeded fees because they couldn't get to their properties. With no money for road repair or snow removal, the board tried different ways to raise funds, and with very little success. And someone about that time found out about the Virginia Sanitary District Act. And so they began the process and followed through with it to become a sanitary district. After the judge's approval, Shenandoah Farms in Warren County became a sanitary district in the summer of 1996. I was hired as the first contracted sanitary district manager later that year. My primary job was to keep the roads passable, to keep the grass cut around the office, and to clean up the accumulated trash that had been accumulating for years. I did that for 8 years. I worked closely with our road contractor, Junior Scheidt. He did far more than what he was ever paid for, but he was the only one that would bid on contracts back in those days. And I guess most of the other contractors didn't want to risk their equipment on our notoriously treacherous roads. Junior had cut in most of those roads when they first started developing that property, as well as built the dams on both of our ponds. So he knew the community very well. In the early days of the sanitary district, many people were upset and would complain about POSF's activities. Things like cleaning up and monitoring the dozens of trash dump sites around the community, clearing roads so emergency vehicles and the police could have access, replacing road signs, and having community stickers so people could use the common properties. As the roads became more passable, contractors started building houses. And of course, the people were upset about that too, because it was encroaching on their hunting, fishing, camping, and drug dealing areas. In an effort to get our finances and our bookkeeping and our records in order, we decided, with the help of Warren County government, to auction off some of our seriously delinquent properties. The first auction put up more than 400 properties. And of course, the local contractors bought most of those properties. Well, that's when our building boom started. And because of the additional wear and tear all that equipment traffic was causing, we came to the Warren County Board of Supervisors and asked to implement a construction impact fee. Of course, the contractors were upset with us about that. One of the early big issues we had was dam related. While doing repairs on the dock at Lake of the Clouds one day, a Virginia dam inspector told me what terrible condition our dams were in. And so this began a several years process of getting our dams and lakes up to state code. And of course, people were upset about that too. And so with that, we have a video presentation that we'd like to show you guys that should answer a lot of the questions and misconceptions that you may have. We're having problems with the audio, as you may well know.
Read on the computer, it'll only show.
We're going to try to get to the Shenandoah Farms website, pull it off of that, and maybe that'll work. In the meantime, we'll continue with, to save you some time, we'll continue with the presentation, and then we'll go back to the video. Each one of you should have gotten this video. I don't know if you watched it or not, but this was going to be like a little review. Like Joe was saying, a lot of reasons people didn't want the street signs and the good roads is because they were hiding out up there. The Farms was a very rough place in those days. So the next speaker is Bruce Boyle, and he's going to give you a financial overview. You have a copy of a flow chart with the banking, and he'll go over that. All righty. Thank you, Bruce.
It's okay, I wasn't on the video anyways. Real quick here, the POSF has been set up so that the financial accountability is pretty transparent. We have no credit card, so there's no way to charge and take money that way. We have no lines of credit. There's no ability to take money, misappropriate it that way. And we have no miscellaneous expenses. We require 2 signatures per check. Anything over $500 has to have board approval. We do sealed bidding where, for any contractor services. So in short, it's been set up in the last 30 years so that it's hard to steal money because our budget is very transparent. It's approved by you guys. Of the money collected in the Shenandoah Farm Sanitary District, we only manage about 90,000, which is about 10% of what's collected. The rest is in the Sanitary District Fund that the county does. Our budget's submitted to you and been approved by you, and it's itemized. So when it comes into every monthly meeting, we have what we've spent on whatever the category would be. Maybe it's legal fees, some of them were above, some were below. But as far as money being misappropriated, it's very hard to do it. I'm newer to the board, and I was very, very pleased that that was one of the first things. There's no little league thing coming through where you got two people controlling all the money. It's all out in the open for everyone to see. There's no fire department credit card. There's no nothing. We're not set up for the ability for people not to see where the money is going. So we have been fortunate. There are several long-term board members, a bunch of new ones coming. I think there are 6 new ones in September and October. And one of the things that comes out very, very quickly is that they are very good long-term financial stewards of the Shenandoah Farms POSF money. It's not that you're going to go back and find anything. And that brings me to one thing that I don't want to be confrontational, I don't want to challenge you, but if you believe the money is not being spent where it's supposed to be spent, we would, as a board, wholeheartedly like for you to appoint someone to investigate now and not over a course of a couple of years. We have nothing to hide. And I've been very transparent and tried to be upfront. I don't envy your jobs. There's 3 new supervisors. You have a lot to learn. But the sanitary district money is money that we've agreed to tax ourselves to improve our community with your oversight. And we have been doing that. Sanitary districts typically, they can get out of control. There's one in Frederick County where they started out at $100 and they proposed $880. That's not what we want. As a board, the consensus just comes out in most every meeting. We'd like to pave our main 16 roads, maintain what we have, keep our community with interest and things for young people, middle-aged people, canoers, kayakers. All of them have access to the amenities that Shenandoah Farms offers within a $90,000 budget, okay? So I really don't want to challenge you to investigate us, but we're not afraid of that. That's what we would like for you to do if you feel like the money's been misappropriated. There was a comment made at one of the work sessions in the video that we can't get things, and that's not true. We've been FOIA'd to death. We provide everything. We're not hiding anything. We have nothing to hide. So financially, if you feel that we have not been prudent, please investigate us quickly rather than kill us slowly. This is a volunteer organization, and people have volunteered a lot of time. Personally, I don't want to sign checks, and I don't want to be part of an organization where one person is the treasurer. Our treasurer can't sign a check over $500, so we've really got 0.005% that can be spent without board approval. So it's not like the money is there and we're hiding it from you. The money's there, the budget's been approved by you. We did ask for a big increase this year. And just so you know, we're not interested in asking for an increase for the next 3 years. We want to fund the road program for the next 3 years so that when our turn comes, the money is there. So we don't have to say we're short $125,000. What do we do? The money will be there, and we're not interested in padding it to have extra down the road. So finally, I just want to go through the flow chart real quick here. The left one says the Wells Fargo account. That is pure sanitary district money. All funding and all expenses are approved by the sanitary district, and i.e. the DOS, Board of Supervisors, which is you folks. Okay? The second account we have is our savings account. It's also Shenandoah Farms Sanitary District money. That's in case we get massive snowstorms like happened the second year I was in there. 42 inches of snow 4 days before they came down. Massive spending. That's our savings account so that we don't have to come back and say, hey, we shorted ourselves this year, can we get a supplementary increase? The third one is all privately funded, comes from Clark County lot fees, building rentals, and POA packets. It is a non-Shenandoah Farms Sanitary District fund. It's a small one, but we actually pay Warren County 6%, and that's where that money comes from, to cover the Clark County portion of the sanitary district. And then the fourth one is a targeted fund. It's if someone comes and says, I'm gonna give you $500, I want this used for playground equipment. That money comes into a non-Shenandoah Farm Sanitary District account, and it sits there, but can only be spent for what that person targeted. It's like making a donation to your church and saying this is for the flower fund, or this is for the building fund, or this is for the roof fund. It can only be spent on that. So in conclusion, don't want to challenge you, don't want to be confrontational, but if you feel the money's misappropriated, let's get it out in the open now. There's a few people that kind of make the innuendo that it's not there, it can't be found. It's all there. We're managing only about 10% of it. You're managing the other 90%. But that 10% we manage is 100% approved by you guys. Okay? Questions?
I have one.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
I ask? Because I want to clear the air.
Yeah.
In terms of your folks following the Procurement Act of Virginia, can you tell me how that process works?
Yes, we follow Warren County and the state of Virginia. Everything that we do, and I know that one of the things is two of the contractors are related. They are required not to leave the room when it's discussed, but to leave the building. Now think about that. They don't go into the other room where they can eavesdrop, they go outside. Everything that's in our budget is a sealed bid. And one of the problems we have, especially as a volunteer organization, is nobody bids on anything. So we like, and I've said this in several meetings already, I challenge people that are in the audience that if they want to be on the recreation committee or they want to have that as their job, to submit a bid for it. Because we would love to have more bids to choose from, because that drives prices down. But in reality, our prices are very low. I did the math on the lawn mowing, because I used to do it years ago and I'm retired now. You can't pay me to buy a truck, lawnmower equipment and everything that this guy is doing for 17 grand. I will not work in the office for $12 an hour either. So it's not like we have big expenses, but we have expenses that are there, that are approved by you and are paid out, but they're done on a sealed bid basis. We're not interested in the conflicts of interest. At every meeting, they're tired of me saying, as I say, we need to put out in the open that the lawn mowing and the office work are related. We want everyone to know that. I hope people will bid for those two jobs. It will free them up to do other stuff. We're not hiding it from you, and we're not doing the nepotism. We've taken, in both cases, the lowest bid, and in some cases, the only bid. So if you only have one bid, what do you do? And there's conflicts about whether it's trash and lawn mowing. One guy wants 2 checks, one guy wants 1 check. But the money itself was a sealed bid and paid to the people it was supposed to be paid for the way they wished to be paid. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. Anybody else?
I do. How do you advertise for those? Are you advertising within the Shenandoah Sanitary District? Do you put it?
Yes, we do. Royal Examiner gets some. There's been newspaper ads that I'm aware of.
We follow all the rules and regulations set up by Warren County Purchasing. So we advertise in a newspaper. We follow the procedures for opening the bids, like Bruce explained. And we follow Warren County purchasing guidelines on everything that we purchase. Is that
Yeah, I
clarified?
was just curious when you said you don't get many bids.
There are not.
If your area was too small and just a curiosity of.
We would love to have more, but you spend a lot of money advertising and you get people that ask for packets, you send the packet, they never return them.
That happens a lot. You'll get, we'll tell them to, is this a bunch of copies?
All the policies and procedures
Yeah.
are there.
Yeah.
Here's the policies and procedures we follow, and they're all Warren County. For the last one, we had janitorial, we received 1 bid. Office manager, 1 bid. Landscape and mowing / trash removal, we got 2 bids. The guy that we awarded the contract was approximately $3,000 less than the other guy. And now a couple of years before that, the guy that currently has it was a couple of $1,000s less than our established guy, but our established guy was giving us a bunch of extra stuff. So Seaford Services actually was a little bit less money, but the bang for the buck was with the other guy, so we went that way. It was the correct thing to do as far as the money is concerned.
You do understand, though, that the perception of the community is that you are somehow having conflicts of interest because there are people. So the way that I'll explain it to you is that if somebody is related to somebody who's in the office or on the board, they potentially have inside information that other people aren't privy to in that process. And that creates a conflict of interest, at least a perception, whether or not it's real. It clearly creates that. So I just want, it's one of the reasons you're getting the criticisms that you're getting.
And how many people called in and complained about quote-unquote nepotism with the grass cutting guy and his relationship to the office manager?
I don't know what the number of people are, but I've heard it several
I
times.
mean, it's been part of the
So I
people
guess
that
what
get
I'm-
up and speak, it has been brought up.
It is, and we're aware of that. That's why at every meeting, we emphasize that we would like people to bid on these things. I'm with the pandemic, I'm bored, I'm looking for something to do. I retired at age 55, I'm 5 years away from Medicare, blah, blah, blah. I looked at the lawn mowing. It's not, I'm not gonna work for $9 or $10 an hour, and that's what it came out to. I understand what you're saying, I say this all the time. The perception of impropriety is sometimes the mistake that's made to begin with.
Exactly.
For us, we have no ability to steal money, no ability to misappropriate. And as far as the bidding goes, it's almost like you call people and you beg them, would you please bid? And they say, I'll take a packet, but they don't bid because they're down there pretty low. If I'm not mistaken, you're looking at $6,000 office and $17,000 out of a $900-some thousand budget. You're not talking about this huge money that's being, targeted toward people. And I do understand what you're saying. I say it to my kids all the time. And I wholeheartedly agree. And that's one of the reasons that, personally, I'm quite pleased we've got 6 new board members in addition to me that look at all of this stuff and say, yeah, and that was one of my main questions coming in, was how is this thing financially run? All my questions were answered by Bob Childress before I ever got the chance to speak at the very first board meeting I attended to. Finances are everything. Had trouble with the fire department, it's a credit card. Had trouble with the EDA, it's lines of credit. We're talking big money there, and I understand that. But for us, we precede and post-date that scandal. We are not everything in the past was bad. Accounting, and you folks included, has been extremely well run for probably 30 years. The schools are updated, the Riverton Commons. This is a very, very attractive community. So not everything in the past was bad. EDA, yes. But if you take that out, this is one of the best run counties in Virginia. And I hope y'all continue as stewards of doing that. And my inclination is you have. We have been good financial stewards of the Shenandoah Farms money and the sanitary district funds that have come in and gone out. We have no desire to have the perception of impropriety, but we don't want to be tarred and feathered by people that had lines of credit, that had credit cards that could be abused. We have taken steps to make sure that that abuse cannot happen to the tune of you can't, the one that I think is the funniest is that the internet bill has to go on somebody's private credit card and submit it for reimbursement. We don't even have a credit card to take care of the $95 a month or whatever the internet fee is. And we don't want one. And that's what I'm saying. So if you look at the money, there's 2,804 lots. We collect 85%. That's down a little bit this year. There's 1,700 homes up there. They're paying $350. It's $980-some thousand coming in. We get 10% of that, and people are complaining about a $23,000 sealed bid process with open books on $1 million. So I don't want to say overlook it. All I'm saying is come in and look at it up close, in person, get it down, and let us move on to where we can manage and not spend so much money on legal fees, freedom of information and stuff. because we've spent, correct me, Lisa, 40 loads of gravel worth of money on this. Think about that, 40 loads of gravel on a community that's dirt roads.
We equate everything to a truckload of gravel when we talk about spending money, because that's where the bang is. People are okay, but when their roads start getting messed up, it's no good.
And just so you know, 85% of all sanitary district money goes to maintain what we already have. We are a maintenance budget for the most part. And that, you know, so this perception, and I understand it, because that's one of the first questions I ask. But if you're doing a sealed bid process, they're welcome to come when we open the bids. The people that have the bids have to leave the building. So there's no, and if you're worried about inside information, I know what the budget is because it's on the meeting agenda every single meeting. So twice a month I look at, we're paying landscaping fees of $17,000. If I want to bid and I want to get it, I'm going to bid $16,100. I know what we're paying him. So it's not like this is money that we're slowly padding up. It's a sealed bid that everyone has the same information to. Whether they choose to avail themselves of the information is not something we can control, but it is published for them to know.
Good. Mr. Rinaldi, is that piece of paper that you're holding in your hand, is that worth giving to us? I mean, we'd love to have a copy, because there's some of the questions that could come out.
Do you have any more of these?
It's the
It's
warrant.
the policies and procedures and how we put our bid packets together.
Well, I understand that, Lisa.
We're going to make you a copy right
We
now.
would love to make you a copy, that's what I'm saying. We would love to.
Yeah, just to let you know, Lisa, we're not looking, I understand the policies and procedures, but I don't really have a list of the people that actually did the work, who won it, who didn't, whether they were low, whether they were high. We don't have that. She's going to make a copy. I appreciate
Keep
that.
that copy, I need that.
Okay.
You guys can have that,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay,
Is there a snow removal budget for, is that done in-house? How
no, that's
there's
part
gonna
of
be a time when
the
snow's
funds
gonna
that
be a big
Warren County has. Remember, we only get about 10% of the total monies collected. The rest of those funds, our funds, go to you, go to the Warren County administration. They manage that money, not us. They'll give us a report on what they're doing and where the money's going, etc. But as far as our part of the sanitary district budget is about 10% of the monies received. The rest of that money goes into Warren County. I'm assuming that there's separate accounts for all of that. So maybe if we're all concerned about this and you want to do an audit on POSF and Shenandoah Farms money down there, the Shenandoah Farm Sanitary District down there, maybe we should also do an audit on what happens up here with the Warren County end of the sanitary district. So that might help the perception. Going back to the grass cutting situation, like I say, there was two people that bid, and the perception, we gave it to the lowest bidder, about $3,000 difference. What would have been the perception if we had awarded it to the other guy for $3,000 more, and he's unproven to us, never bid on us before. In fact, he bought that business from the guy that used to cut the grass. And that guy called me and said, hey, this fellow just bought my business. I think he ought to get the contract to do it. And, the perception if I had done that would have been a lot worse. So, it is what it is. I used to officiate football, and I also coached football. And it was funny. You'd get an official on the sideline there, and sidelines get to be pretty hectic after a while. And so you'll get an official that makes a bad call, and then you start looking at his uniform, and if one sock is lower than the other sock, then it starts. The hassling of that official starts, because the perception was he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, his uniform wasn't squared away, etc. So I do understand perception. In this case, I think the perception of giving out a bid for $3,000 more than what the low bidder was would have been worse. So that's what I'll say on that.
Okay.
Are we ready for the bid?
Real quick, I just want to sum up one thing, because we get the misconceptions are coming, but here's some of what we deal with on a fictitious thing. We'd like to see your credit card statement. Well, we don't have any credit cards, so we can't give you any statement. Okay, then what goes on social media is they refuse to give us credit card statements, which is a true statement, which implies that we're hiding money. But if you have no credit cards, you cannot provide a credit card statement. So be careful, because what you're hearing, there's the phrase made in the meeting, the work session, that where there's smoke, there's fire. Sometimes you have to remember that where there's smoke, there is fire. And also, sometimes people blow smoke at you. So just be careful. We invite you to go through our finances with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay, anything else for us on that?
I have to say something. I said, where there's smoke, there's potential for fire. I said that. Now,
I did
you,
too.
and she did too.
I'm okay with that. I'm just saying that, just remember that it could be fire, and we'd like you to prove there's not. That's what we're asking you. I'm serious.
But please, that's why we're here. There is no witch hunt here. There is an opportunity for questions that we have to be answered in a logical manner that we understand, so we can in turn get some of these people that are the witch hunters off of your back and our back. If there's a problem, we'll probably unfold it, and we'll fix it. We'll move forward. We'll do the best that we can. But perception is 95% of the rule. So it works both ways.
I would agree with it works both ways, because
Our perception is y'all are doing a really good job. That's not blowing smoke after you.
I will say, because I said I would like to have an investigation, and I didn't mean just of Shenandoah Farms. I wanted to include the government center. I think it would have to include the government center, and I have no fear of that. If we're doing something inappropriate or not in the correct way, then we need to correct that as well. I'm not saying I think we are, I don't know, and that's what I'm trying to educate myself. But also, when people come, I have an obligation. If you were to walk up to me and say, I think this is going on here, you expect me to follow up on that. If I don't, I'm not doing my job. Whether I do it or whether I go to Dr. Daly and say, Mr. Rinaldi came with me about a concern, we need to talk about this and see the right route to do it. And that's where I feel we need to do here. We repeatedly have people saying, whether anybody agrees with them or not, they feel that they have a right to be heard and for their concerns to be addressed. Just as, and like you said, you don't want this drug out, I don't want this drug out, they don't want this drug out. So what is the easiest way? Sit down, go through it, and make everybody happy. You know that you've laid it all out. They can see it, whoever, we can get an independent group of people that don't have a dog in the fight to look at it. We've done our job. Everybody should be happy at the end of the day. And that's, I'm more than happy to hear whatever you've got to say as far as educating, because there's a lot to be educated on this, that is for certain. But I think the bottom line still is, in order to satisfy everybody, we need to look at it and be done with it. And not deal with this over and over.
Shows quite a bit.
Because I don't want you to keep sending money on a load of gravel that you probably going to need before the
We'd
winter
rather
goes
spend it on gravel than legal fees.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would we. We've got a lot of gravel as well.
So, and that's no accusation on anybody. It's just
Same here.
doing our job.
Are you ready, sir? Okay, we're going to jump back to the video now, and I think go ahead.
I came from Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, where I actually actually lived in Los Angeles for almost 40 years.
I was born and raised in D.C.
I moved to the farms at the end of March.
I moved here in 2001.
Since 94.
The early 70s. I'm a senior citizen. I've been here 35 years.
We are very close to major employment centers, Chantilly, Dulles, Herndon.
We're approximately, I'd say, 60 plus miles from Washington, D.C., west of Washington, D.C., 17 miles east of Winchester, Virginia, and 21 miles kind of north of Front Royal, Virginia.
I think we're over 3,000 acres, if I'm not mistaken. We're the second largest subdivision in the state. Many of the people with blue-collar jobs find it necessary to live this far away from D.C. We are definitely a commuter community. And it's becoming increasingly not difficult to make your living locally also. Winchester is growing, Front Royal is growing.
You know, to come home here, even from the big city of Winchester, where I work, is just a wonderful relief from the outside world. This is the inside world for sure. And we're actually in heaven, if you ask me, having grown up in the South Bronx.
Well, the history, I did some research into that, and I had a friend that lived right here off of Manor Lane, which is right across from us right there. And he would plant a garden every year. And whenever he'd go out and till up his garden, he found buckets full of Indian artifacts, you know, everything from arrowheads to mortise and pestles and you know, hatchet handles and stuff. And we have no idea how far that goes back, but we know that at one point that there was a pretty active Native American community in this area. I'm sure the river was part of that.
My understanding is the tribe was called the Shenandoah, from which we get the name Shenandoah on the river. We did do an unofficial dig down along some of their riverfront property close to here. And we went down about 6 feet and found evidence of campfires, some of which we intend to get carbon dated. And that just gives you some indication of how much the river has silted up the banks. I mean, 6 feet of earth. We didn't go all the way down. We don't know how much deeper that might have gone, but obviously this area has been inhabited by humans for quite some time, probably far longer than we're even aware of.
And there are old legends of things that go back to this. In fact, when you come down Hounsville Road, there's a big rock in the river, a huge rock, and that was supposedly rolled off the top of the mountain at one point and rolled over an Indian chief on his white horse, and that is called White Horse Rock. So because of that, I don't know how much truth there is into that.
There is a marker in somebody's front yard right off of Houseville Road that George Washington did some surveying around here.
Over the years, I've talked to people that have found Civil War relics. There was a person that was doing some work on his driveway, dug up a Civil War cannon out of his yard.
One of our names is, or one of our road names is Mosby's Meadow Lane. Mosby's Raiders were part of the Confederate entourage in this area. He was quite famous, became a lawyer in D.C. after the war, but he was quite active, a guerrilla fighter, really.
Back here on the Shenandoah River Lane, there is still part of the foundation of a building that was used as a Civil War hospital. And so there are several things, you know, there are still like family cemeteries and things within, you know, on properties in the farms. There's a mausoleum just up the road here that you can see off of Houseville Road that goes back into the either late 1700s or early 1800s.
My understanding is that Robert Young, who was a senator, bought some land out this way and then began selling lots out of the trunk of his car right along Houseville Road in the early days. It's a very rural community that was originally started as a recreational community. I guess that was the vision back in those days for hunting and camping kinds of things, you know, people that wanted to use the river. And it's basically become a bedroom community for the DC area now.
It was created as a recreational community for summer homes, and people could come up here and build a getaway cabin for the weekend type of place. And it had some great amenities. It had a good sized swimming, it had 2 swimming pools. So you could purchase a lot here and use the amenities. There was a riding stable, the swimming pools, the river access. And that's the way this place was marketed.
And it was primarily vacation property back then. People would come up for the weekends and so forth and so on, enjoy the amenities and just enjoy some time in the woods. I would say John Flynn, his son-in-law, was really the prime mover at that point. He used to be found on site often, and his wife Judy, Senator Young's daughter. They had a full-time sales staff. Named Butch Gillard comes to mind, but I don't believe I ever met him. But there were some of the early salespeople.
You could buy a lot for a couple of $1,000s. They would finance them $25 down, $10 a month. And depending on when you purchased, your deeded lot fee varied in cost. Some people had a 0 deeded lot fee. Others were $15, $20, up to $50.
Just the stories I've heard, like them giving out, if you come to take a look at a lot, you get a free turkey. I remember, sorry I missed that day actually. That was back probably in the late 60s or early 70s.
Gradually they took over or bought more of the tracts in the area and subdivided those. Okay, now we enter some of what you might call some of the dark days of farms. In the early 70s, right around 73, we experienced the gas crisis, and the subdivision began to suffer from people not coming out quite as frequently to purchase lots out here. You know, we had gas lines and so forth and so on.
There were some title problems. I hear that the way they did business, they didn't really get it all right in terms of filing, you know, deeds and title searches and things like that.
The fees for the lots were not equitable. It was $50 for one person and 15 for another, and 0 in my case, on my deed. The original lot fees were $15, no more than $50 a lot. They were tied to the deeds. It would never go up. My understanding is that Robert Young, on occasion, might say, and if you buy today, we'll waive the annual lot fee. So that there was no enforceable mechanism in place to maintain the roads and the facilities.
When Flynn first developed this, as long as they were selling properties, they were maintaining everything. When they sold the last properties, there was no more money for maintenance anymore, so things started going downhill pretty quickly, you know, and then all the facilities, the pools, they were not able to maintain them, and, you know, everything just fell into disrepair.
Now here's the issue. This whole community was supposed to be maintained on deeded lot fees, which could never be increased. So if you took an average of, say, $20 for a deeded lot fee to maintain 43 miles of roads, was kind of a dead-end situation.
Originally, when the fellow that developed this area had a really good vision, but he didn't provide for financing of maintaining the facilities and buildings?
Shenandoah Farms was a subdivision that was essentially created on paper, where you had a surveyor that laid out the lots and they came in and put in the roads. Today, you would come in and you'd have an engineer design the roads and then do the lot layout. So it's kind of reversed in the way that normally we would do that today. So it makes it much more difficult because you're chasing your tail and you're trying to fix infrastructure issues and problems.
The basic issue down here was, in a nutshell, there was no money to maintain the infrastructure of this community. And when the roads deteriorated and people abandoned their houses, their summer cabins, then some people started moving in and squatting in these buildings. People that didn't want to be found.
And I think it was probably back in '96, if my memory serves me well, that we had this big 3-foot snowstorm throughout the county. And after the snowstorm, we had this rapid melting and so forth, if you will. So I jumped right into the flooding of the river and the destruction of a lot of the roads and so forth in the farms.
When we first moved here, Shenandoah Farm was pretty much in disarray. It was a recreational community which had fallen apart.
The community just went to seed, basically. Roads weren't maintained, tree branches weren't cut. The fire department used to complain about antennas, lights, and mirrors being broke off fire apparatus. People started to abandon their properties.
If you didn't pay your lot fees, eventually I suppose you could have been taken to court. But at $15 a lot per year on some of the very early lots, even if you had been, the economics weren't there for prosecuting any of that, even if the will had been. So the roads fell into further disarray and unimprovement. And in some ways it kind of became the Wild Wild West.
When I first moved in here, this was a pretty rough area. In fact, some of the folks in town referred to Shenandoah Farms as the Wild Wild West. We had a lot of drugs and outlaw bike gangs and things like that. Back in the day, before Sanitary District, the lakes were a hot spot of illegal activities, drugs, prostitution, etc. All that's been cleaned up since we went into the Sanitary District in 1995.
The Sheriff's Department didn't want to have to send their cruisers over the roads, from what we understand. And one sheriff was quoted as saying, I'm not sending my cruisers up in there. So it became a haven for people who might have been somewhat nefarious.
And we called the Sheriff's Department trying to get a hold of the drug issues and those kind of things. And the sheriff at that point, he's been gone for a long time, he told us, he said, if you think I'm going to bring my cruisers up those creek beds you call roads, you're out of your mind. And so we couldn't even get police protection. When I first came here, the sheriff would not send vehicles up here because they would get tore up. You go back and talk to the sheriff in the early days out here, street signs were stolen so that people could not be found. So up on Jones Quadrangle, there was a motorcycle gang had an area up there. The sheriff wouldn't even go up there.
There was no money to do anything. The lakes, the river lots were in bad shape. And then Joe Longo, bless his heart, they hired Joe, and with very limited income, Joe started trying to improve the lots.
When the community started going downhill, several residents started the idea of forming a sanitary district to get more revenue in here to maintain this beautiful area.
Of course, the major thing that happened in the farms was the implementation of the sanitary district. For once, the Board of the board here at PRSF had the financial resources to really make a difference in the community.
Basically, a sanitary district is a special taxing district for a specific purpose as set out in the court order that created it. And for Shenandoah Farms, it's pretty much for road maintenance. When you think about it, you've got, I think, a little over 42 miles of private roads in this subdivision, which is much more than a lot of localities, small towns and cities. So it's its own little local government out here in Houston.
There was some really brave people that went after the idea of the sanitary district. Kathleen George and her husband Dwight, Don Hoover and his wife. I think Mr. and Mrs. Moriarty were involved in it. And the Averys, Kate Avery was involved in it. And they led the way. And there was a big argument down here as to, some people wanted it and some people didn't. It was definitely, I call those folks pioneers of Shenandoah Farms because they put it out there. They got criticized, they got threatened, the whole bit.
People that were opposed to it didn't bring up issues. They just didn't want to do it. And their biggest concern was that they felt like it was the government stepping in and having more say about where they live and what they do with their money.
At first, we were fearful what might happen once the county took over, but that is actually proven to be a real boon. When the county first took over roads, I was a little upset about it, but from seeing what they're doing and the quality of work they're doing, the roads are turned over to the state system once they finish them. I used to live on 2 dirt roads where I couldn't sit on my front porch for the dust, and now I can enjoy the luxury of sitting on 2 paved roads.
Sanitary district got funding assistance to repair roads and do those kind of things because the sanitary district is considered part of the county government. At the time, of course, a lot of the citizens didn't understand that, so we actually brought some state people out here to meet with the citizens of the community to explain that was one major benefit of being a sanitary district.
Essentially, this community was not a full-time, year-round living community. It was a vacation destination. That's at least what I hear. So the roads, when we started out, were all just dirt roads. There was no real attempt to make a good roadway system in Warren County or Florida.
There were roads that were impassable to some of our bigger trucks, all right, during normal times. So you can imagine what they were when you got, a couple inches of rain or just a thunderstorm coming through, with gullies and washouts and so forth. And what that does is it extends response times. With the amount of roads that are here in Farmers and the amount of houses and so forth and customers that we have to serve, that's response times is not extended response times is not a good thing. Confident enough to say this, that it was 15-minute response times to the top of the mountain. Sometimes the roads were so bad you had to reroute and go other ways and so forth. And really, to be honest, luckily we had other routes we could take, but again, it adds to the response times.
Once the sanitary district was formed, the lot fees were established by the Shenandoah Farms Board and the County Board of Supervisors. The county could collect those fees for, I think, about 4% of the fees. They took over all the collection and unpaid fees. It became then actionable under county law to sell lots with unpaid fees that went on over a significant period of time. So that it became, in essence, a tax, which some people object to if you want to form a sanitary district, but became absolutely necessary from the standpoint of bringing up the quality of life on the farms and giving people access to their properties. And we've been making progress ever since.
Now, my understanding is that sanitary districts are run by county board of supervisors, but they just take a small 2 or 3% fee
to administrate the funds so that the sanitary district manager uses 97% of the money on the work to be done in the farms.
The county, the Board of Supervisors, which are my boss, basically, by the court order, are in charge of the sanitary district. And the way Warren County has worked its sanitary districts over the years, initially we were contracting back with POSF to run the day-to-day operations. So the county basically collected the sanitary district tax and remitted the funding over to POSF to perform the actual duties.
Sanitary district gives us so much more than what you really understand. They give us a relationship with the county. They give us good roads. They give us access to information that we need. They give us somebody who is a liaison with us. And we are actually an advisory board to the county. And that's part of the historical relationship that we have with Warren County.
One of the great benefits about the sanitary district is that the county collects those taxes along with one's real estate taxes. And it relieves the homeowners association from the burden of going after their neighbors to collect HOA fees, the burden of having to place liens on properties against your neighbors. So I think, especially in a place like Shenandoah Farms, we have a lot of absentee, out-of-state, a lot of owners, it gets real tough to be able to collect that money. So I think one of the things that the sanitary district has really been able to do since 1996 is provide some stability and additional revenue for the residents out here to be able to improve the infrastructure.
The residents voted to join the sanitary district, which is a bit of a misnomer. It has nothing to do with water. It has absolutely nothing to do with sewer. It's rather unfortunate that it's called that because people assume in the process of trying to set up another sanitary district, were you to choose to do so, that it involves those sorts of expenses and so forth and so on, and that's not true at all.
No one is going to come in here and squat in a house if the sheriff is going to come up and say, you can't be here. No one's going to abandon their property if the infrastructure is correct.
Contractors really started buying and building and selling homes, and the home prices started going up, and so we started becoming more of a bedroom community.
The sanitary district, like I said, has been the salvation of Shenandoah. Treasure Island is, I think, one of the best recreation areas in the world.
Well, Treasure Island is my favorite place to take the dogs, especially early in the morning on weekdays. There's nobody there. It's just a beautiful spot. Short hikes. The dogs love it. It gives you a view of the Shenandoah River that you don't really get from anywhere else.
Treasure Island, we actually made Treasure Island. Treasure Island was all woods. And Junior Sight, who did all of the road work here and all the clearing work for years and years here in the farms, went down there and cleared that area down there. And like I said, with that river bottom dirt, the lawn just came in naturally. It's absolutely beautiful. We have swings down there. We have picnic tables. We have grills down there. We have climbing bars for the kids and a lot of stuff. Access to the river, access to the island itself.
We've got a park for the kids down on this side of the river, not out on the island itself for the kids. And it's a nice picnic site. You can go out there and we keep it mowed and everything.
The Treasure Island common property was developed by POSF about 15 years ago. It used to just be a wooded area down there. If you go further back into the wooded area of Treasure Island, there's like a little gravel bar type of beach that people use.
We have sort of a relationship with Treasure Island. We had a dog that passed away a couple of years ago, and he was very fond of going down with my husband in the truck to Treasure Island just to run around.
There's also two river access points, one off Shenandoah River Lane, and one off of Farms View, and another one off of Farms Riverview. We maintain those. There's a brand new river access that was put in by the state of Virginia down on Farms Riverview, and we combined one of our common properties with that for a park setting. I think probably the main appeal out here is the river. And we have, the river runs along several miles of the community, and people come from all over the place to come out here and enjoy do floats or canoeing or kayaking or, you know, fishing and those kinds of things. And that was certainly an appeal to me, but there's also some really great hiking. I like to take my bike out and ride, do some mountain biking and those kinds of things. It's those kinds of recreational things. You know, there are still some areas where you can do camping.
My wife gets on a rubber raft off Treasure Island, and I pick her up down at the Shenandoah River Lane. It's about 3 miles by water. That's what she does for fun, is paddle on there. There's nobody on the river usually, she just has it all to herself. So
I like the river access down below Myers Drive. It's nice down there. The county has improved it quite a bit. It's a decent place to go. That's my favorite place.
It's just the kind of community that makes it accessible to all of us.
One of my favorite things when I was property manager to do was to go down and work along the river, because there we have eagles nesting along the river, and you can go down and watch them fish, and you can, you know, there's beavers in the river, and there's a lot of wildlife in the area.
there's like, if there are coyotes here, we have a rabbit family that lives in front of my house.
Our family does a lot of fishing and hunting, so to go down to the common grounds and learn that that was part of the benefits of living here on the farm, it was a plus for actually being here.
I guess game and fisheries do stock fish in the river, and there's muskie and pike, and this was one of the rated, I don't know if it still is, one of the best smallmouth bass streams in the country at one time. We have 2 lakes. One is Spring Lake, it's probably about 4 acres, and we have Lake of the Clouds, which is probably 8 or 9 acres, and both of them have been there for probably 50 years, 40, 50 years, and so they're well stocked with fish, and it's a good place. We have docks at both of those lakes, and they're nice, clean, you know, facilities where we have playground equipment and things like that. We have the areas around the community center here on the other side of Jim's Country Store over there. We have our basketball courts for the kids.
The county, we sincerely appreciate the collaborative relationship that we've developed with the POSF board. I think we both have the same vision in mind as far as, you know, creating a better community out here. That's part of my job as county administrator, is to help work with the community, to build community and make a better quality of life. And it takes sometimes, it's kind of a public-private partnership here, from working with their HOA board, POA board, collaboratively to identify needs, find a way to pay for them, and get them completed.
If I could tell the residents why it's important to be part of the board or part of the community, I can even say that you have board members that listen. They can work out problems that you might have, and on the other hand, they can give you resources to complete things that you would like to have as part of the community.
We will have one vote, except there's 300 million of us. So I don't know how much power that one vote gives us. But here in the farms, being part of the community, I don't want to say government, but part of the community organization,
we make decisions on, should we repair the band shell over there? We want to have concerts. You have more say as a board member than any other way I participate in government.
I chose to be on the board because every community that I've ever lived in, I've never really had a voice. Being on the board is a privilege. I am retired and I need to know what the roads are like, what happens in a storm, evacuations, and entities like that.
I don't always win on the issues that come up, but I get a hearing. And sometimes my side does win, depending on what the issue is. So you feel like you have some control over where you live.
Most people complain about things without ever doing anything about it. They complain about the people who are running the country and don't vote, and those kinds of things. So one of the first things I did when I came here was I came to the meetings, I go to the different things that I'm interested in. I've acted as a board member for Arts Council. You can either be a part of the problem or you can be a part of the solution. And I feel it's always better to be a part of the solution.
I want to participate in the community. I live here. I like the people here. They're friendly. And we could use more help when we have activities and all, but it's hard when people are busy and things.
We sponsor events year-round that really hundreds of people show up at, and we can always use more help in creating those events and working at those events.
Well, to meet people, help your community out, help improve it, think of things to get people to come here, different activities like.
We're a good group. I think that I could call anybody on the board if I needed help, and they would be more than happy to help me out.
I just like to know what's going on. I enjoy knowing my neighbors. I know a lot of us leave early and come back late, and I know, but the last thing you want to do when you get home or on a weekend is leave to go anywhere knowing that you're going to be on the road possibly 5 days a week for the rest of the week. But to know what's going on, to get to know some of the other people that live in your community, and possibly form alliances to whatever end, being able to rely on your neighbors to help cut your grass when you might be away on vacation or whatever it happens to be. It's just been a wonderful opportunity for me to be connected and to have an idea of what's happening on the farms.
I'm going to tell you one thing. To believe in something takes effort, okay? To believe in something takes work. If you want to believe in your community, come join us. Come get involved. The rewards are great. You'll be informed. You'll be part of a voice for this community. That's what I would. Right? So just remember, disbelief is easy because you don't have to do anything. But to believe in something takes effort.
This is your community, and you're responsible to it. So come on out and help us.
That film was produced by Shenandoah University students under the direction of Paul DeFranco. He was the guy in the heavyset guy in the black t-shirt. He's a professor at Shenandoah University. He's also our treasurer. It's kind of, when you watch that tape, it kind of excites you about the community. And you can see why we're passionate about Shenandoah Farms, especially from how we evolved. The next speaker would be Jonathan Oakes, and he's going to talk about some misperceptions, some main points, and some allegations. Jonathan, you're up. Thank you.
How's it going? Jonathan Oakes, 1125 Drummer Hill Road. Well, I watched some videos. I don't come to none of the meetings down here. I watch the videos after they're posted. But as for being a for-profit, we're actually a non-profit. We do have Virginia sales tax exemption, 501c3 status. Lisa has the documents for that. Name change allegations, confusions, and circumstances of being a POA. I know out of the 5,000 residents of Shenandoah Farms in the Sanitary District, we've continually heard at each meeting from about 4. And with that, they keep posting that we aren't a POA or an HOA. Where an HOA, your homeowners association, is more so for your property value, your home value, the color of your shutters, the color of your doors. A POA is the common properties within the community and the infrastructure of the community, which we are a POA, but not under the Virginia Act, because we are not mandatory. We are voluntary. So therefore, under the Virginia Act, we aren't, but that's what we are, because of being voluntary. They posted a deed from Treasure Island that has Shenandoah Farms Property Owners Association on the name. We have been POSF Incorporated Property Owners Shenandoah Farms since the beginning. I know up until this year the county didn't require misuses of names to be filed. They posted that, claiming that the name has been changed, and the name hasn't been changed. We're the same thing through the county as we continue to be. Money in Clark County being spent. They say it's against the management agreement. This stems from a misconception of a 2011 Board of Supervisors management agreement. And then they want to allege that gratuities are those checks given to the sanitary district crew annually. The money that comes with those checks, which I think was $50 to $75 for the crews at Christmas time, was out of POSF Incorporated funds, not POSF Sanitary District funds. As you've already seen our banking, we have our money that comes from sticker sales for the farms, our Clark County fees, and all that. Nothing sanitary district fund-wise gets used other than for what it's allotted for by the county. Let's see. They then wanted to go on the roof repairs to our community center, which is located inside the Clark County border, right on basically the Warren and Clark line. Building serves as the main meeting center for POSF Inc. It also hosts most of our activities, our community day, which this year obviously not happening, our Halloween party that we do, Christmas time when we have Santa come in for the neighborhood kids to get their pictures. The roof had been leaking for numerous years and needed repairs. POSF maintained the proper bidding process, choosing the lowest bidder. Our bidding process is laid forth by Warren County and the state, followed to the T, sealed bidding. Nothing's open until we're there, no contractors in the room, all that, it's already been gone over. All documents have been provided to the complaining parties through the FOIA requests, and the repairs allowed the building to remain habitable and didn't cause excessive damage through mold or more water damage from the roof leaking. Boards on the roof had to be replaced, sections of the roof had to be replaced structurally from the leaking going on so long without being fixed. They keep referring to a special assessment claim allegation from Matlock and the county in 1995. As the video showed, our lot fees, deed lot fees were from $0 to $50, some of them with none, some more. And then to collect them was hard, being it was a vacation property. Roads were in disarray. They were trying to come up with the money to fix that and the infrastructure needed. So they came forward and tried setting a set fee of $100. Someone there that resided on Houseville decided they weren't doing that, put the lawsuit in place, and that's where that case came from before we became a sanitary district and were able to get the fees in place that are now in place to be collected for repair. Then we get into, actually let me pull my notes out real quick. Just the spending on FOIA requests, all that. We're a small volunteer organization. It's not like we have a set day where the money that POSF gets, sticker sales, you don't know that that year you're going to get $106 sticker sales. So, you know, that goes into our attorney fees for these FOIA requests. She then wanted to say that the book she got as a FOIA request wasn't complete after she got it. She was angry. The first FOIA request, they asked for the budget for the sanitary district and for POSF Inc., which is not a part of the sanitary district or other account. The first one, we didn't give it to her. The second one, we said, you know what, there's nothing to hide, go ahead and give it to her. That was given to them. Now, of course, that doesn't fit what she wants on top of it. But on that comes the legal fees of us, and she was angry she was charged with it. Lisa's time isn't free. Nobody that we have, other than on the board, has time to dedicate that's free. Everybody charges something. We can't have somebody sitting there to put together half of the New Testament in FOIA requests and expect it to be done in the 4 hours she's paid for a week. It's getting to the point, and they was put in the gravel terms. We've lost, before our last meeting, it was just over 42 loads of gravel. We have over...
What is that in money?
What is
I don't
it?
know how much 42 loads of gravel costs. What is that in money?
It's pushing $7,000.
Okay.
We've lost over, and like it was said, it's 42 miles of gravel roads up there. Our goal, of course, is at least get the 16 main miles of roads that are impacted by over 5,000 residents paved. But you figure 2,500 of those, driving 2,500 cars with 2 ways in and out every day during just a 5-day work week, and the amount of traffic those gravel roads see, what goes into maintaining a gravel road. I grew up on a gravel road in Browntown, and just from 6 neighbors, and 2 of them being from the city and never living on a gravel road that figured 40 mile an hour is a decent speed for a gravel road, you can see how quick stuff gets messed up. And then of course comes the complaints from others of, oh, well, my road's washboarded, this, that, this. Well, you know, we have, it's not just your road we have to work with. We have 42 plus miles of roads. Then we get on to I think I've covered most of the misconceptions that are being brought up. It's just a continual battle. A lot of the older board members before me don't use Facebook as much. I've gotten into a couple Facebook groups that are set up by, I'll call it as I see it, the habitual complainers. Actually set up a Facebook group called Shenandoah Farms Uncensored. Invite people and then spread straight misconceptions and misinformation and their interpretation of, oh, well, in 95 they said they couldn't do this. Well, in 95 we weren't a sanitary district. So what does that have to do with today? If there's this much wrong in the community, explain how we are the second largest sanitary district in the state of Virginia. We went from a place where you could not give away land due to the community, roads, everything else, to now over 5,000 residents on just that side of the mountain. And as I said, we're a board of volunteers. The ultimate goal is improving and maintaining our community. In September, we had 6 new advisory board members come forward from the community elections, myself being one of them, Sarah as well. And the reason I got involved was actually repeatedly seeing stuff being published on Facebook. And I wanted, let me check it out. I live here. I bought my first house here. Let me go see if this is what's really happening. And start going to the meetings, getting the information that is freely handed out when you show up to a meeting, and realizing that everything being skewed is constantly misstrued to fit whatever their agenda is. Out of 5,000 plus district residents, I continually hear misinformation from about 4. And then not just this, where there's smoke, there's fire, but this is more of a where there's gravel, there's dust. Where there's ruckus, there's dust. And that's what this honestly has turned out to be. That's all I have for misconceptions that are currently out. If y'all have any more that are possibly in what's in front of me, I can answer.
I have a question. Maybe one of you can answer. There's been some conversation about Clark County, and I see that you're referencing Clark County. What actually is the relationship to Clark County to the sanitary district? Are we doing sanitary district work in Clark County and collecting for it? I don't know that relationship, and I'd like to have that clarified.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan's one of our, I'll get to you in a sec. Jonathan's one of our new people, and I've got big plans for Jonathan because, you know, we're about the same size, and I think he can take over eventually for us. Yeah, you got to grow that. That's right.
Well, I commend you for doing that because, you know, you didn't just sit back and complain and at your house about things. So I appreciate you getting active more, and I'd like to see more young people get active.
No, thank you. And
Spread that word.
that's another thing. The ones that have continually come here too, actually came down to a couple meetings, made recommendations for a family day for a dunk tank for the kids and the board members to be in. And then leave the board and publish that it was a misuse of funds to buy a dunk tank after it was their recommendation to do it. So,
Ms. Oates, to answer your question, there is a section in Clark County that is in Shenandoah Farms, part of the Shenandoah Farms community. We do not spend any funds on Clark County infrastructure, okay? Any sanitary district funds. A long time ago, we got permission to, there was a road, an intersection of Manor and Old Oak, okay? And that road was in horrible repair. All of the, residents in the farms that used that route were Warren County residents, with the exception of one. He lived on the corner. So there was a small sliver of property that was actually in Clark County. We got permission from the county attorney, or we got clarification rather, about spending sanitary district funds on Old Oak. And he said that was no problem because it benefited Warren County residents, okay? So we did that. After that was taken care of, the word went out that POSF spent, I forget the exact amount, just say $50,000
on a road in Clark County. So that half-truth is what we've been fighting for years, and no matter what you say, you know, that's the way it is. So, but there are no sanitary district money spent on Clark County infrastructure. We are allowed to spend money on the recreational facilities that are open to all the community in Clark County. For example, that basketball court had been a dilapidated tennis court. You probably remember it, Archie, from going down there. We refurbished that, and I cut a deal with the power company on an old pit that we had that was not being used anymore, so they could put some transformers in there to update the power. And so we leased it to the power company. We didn't sell it, we leased it. And it's kind of ironic that the lease amount was what I needed to pave the basketball court. So then it was about $3,000 worth of basketball standards to put in. That came right out of our little rec account that we had for donations. So to answer your question, we do not spend any money in Clark County except where it benefits all the residents of Warren County. The community center roof, the basketball courts, cutting the grass. We spent a little bit of money refurbishing the amphitheater for a Boy Scouts Eagle project. So we put that money in there. Now, I believe that money did not come out of Sanitary District Fund. That may have came out of the POS Inc. fund, non-sanitary district. It was a couple $300. So I hope that answers your question.
Can I add a little bit something to that, Ralph?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
The Clark County section was part of the original development that Flynn and Young developed. And so when they started POSF Incorporated, they included that in that. So it's still part of us, but it's in Clark County, so we can't have any involvement with the sanitary district. We actually even have a little part that goes into Fauquier County, but because it's in such a rugged area, it never has been an issue. But that was part of the original community. We actually asked the Clark County people to start their own sanitary district because they were always asking us, because they pay their $15 lot fees, deeded fees. And they were always asking us to do work on their roads. But we couldn't do any work on their roads because we didn't have any money to do work on their roads. And that's gone on for years and years. You know, but we can't kick them out. They're part of the contract, you know, but it's not the sanitary district contract. It's the POSF Incorporated contract.
So that's another question, because it's kind of confusing. Now, I've been told that POSF is a separate entity from, so you require your homeowners to pay a fee, correct, a lot fee, and then we tax them in the sanitary district, but they don't have to be members of POSF Inc. Is that correct?
No, not really.
Okay, then can you outline the relationship? Because it is confusing to a lot of people.
For Warren County residents, when we went into the sanitary district, part of the arrangement was the deeded lot fees for Warren County properties would be waived, because the whole idea was to be able to collect the money. Well, it wasn't fair to bill the deeded lot fees for Warren County property when they were paying the sanitary district fee. So it was kind of a trade-off. But the original sanitary district fee was $50 per lot. It's a deeded lot fee. It's not a fee from POSF. Okay, we waived that when we went into the sanitary district.
But POSF Inc. is voluntary, correct? So you're not, all your homeowners.
Membership is not mandatory.
Correct, so all your homeowners don't have to join POSF Inc.
They do not have
even
to.
though they're taxed in the sanitary district.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, we service all residents in Shenandoah Farms, if they have in Warren County Shenandoah Farms. We service all those residents. So whether they like us or not, if they got a problem, they need a sticker, and they can come down and get the sticker.
How much
If
is the sticker?
the sticker in Warren County is $5. Okay,
What's the sticker in Clark County?
25 or 20?
I'm just curious.
25. And the reason it is, Ms. Oates, the reason it's $25 is they don't pay into any sanitary district fee, and about 6% of our budget is common properties, and they can still have the deeded right to use common properties.
Okay.
So did I answer your question right?
It's still confusing, Mr. Rinaldi. I don't care how you slice it and dice it, it is confusing. And I'm trying to clarify it for those people out there watching this, because it is confusing to people about which entity manages what action and how the sanitary district has a relationship to the POSF Inc. Because they're separate, obviously, and a lot of people conflate them.
If you look at your banking flow chart, it'll have POSF Inc. non-sanitary district monies. Non-sanitary district monies, decals, hall rentals, deeded lot fees from Clark County. Okay? Now we have to write, in order to get our quarterly check, we have to write a check out of the POSF Inc. account, non-sanitary, to Warren County to cover the Clark County residents who may or may not use the common properties, because that was brought up in a suit maybe 10 years ago or so. So we end up paying that. This year is going to be hard on us because of COVID. We haven't had the hall rentals that we used to have. We stopped renting the hall. Okay, so we're going to be faced with that as we go along. So anyway, it is confusing. I agree. It took me a few years to get it all figured out myself. So,
And I was asked, no offense, I was asked to figure that out in a few weeks.
Say again, Walter.
I'm only going to say it took you several years to figure it out.
Yeah, you guys been in here, what, 10 months?
Yeah.
I was in Shenandoah Farms the first month, and I got a ton of information that I was expected to understand, and I ticked people off. I'm sorry for that, but I'm also, like Mrs. Culler says, if you hear it, the perception is possibly different.
I agree with the perception idea with one exception, and I'll just say, if you watch that film tonight and you see how this board and former board members are so upbeat about Shenandoah Farms, so proud of that community from where it was basically in the ashes to where it is today, how about that perception? That should mean something, so that's why we want to...
I didn't know about it then. I know a lot more now because
I know you
had to learn.
Right. All right, so...
I have another couple of questions.
Okay.
Jonathan, is Jonathan still here? Yeah. Jonathan, my apologies. Not trying to pick on you. You said in your presentation that you were talking about roughly 5,000.
Yep.
Okay, 5,000 what?
Residents.
Residents? Okay, how many lots?
How many lots?
Yeah, because you're basing your income off of lots, not residents.
I wasn't talking income. I was speaking out of 5,000 residents. We roughly continually hear complaints out of 4.
Irregardless, how many lots do you have in Shenandoah Falls?
2804.
2,804, 1,783 developed.
Yep.
And we based that number, that estimation, we based it off of the last census that was submitted, and we estimated roughly 2.5 individuals per household.
Thank you. I mean, not trying to pick anywhere, I'm just trying to get where you get your numbers.
We want to, don't want to get off on the wrong foot. So I'm very passionate about Shenandoah Farms, okay?
As you should be, sir.
And I'm proud to be Shenandoah Farms. When I first bought out here, I bought a summer place, and Harry Wines, the sheriff deputy at the time, you guys know him, he pulled up, and I was so glad to see him because I wanted him to watch this place while I furbished it up. And I had a hammer in my hand, and I went, "Hey," and he drew down on me. And he got behind the fender, he was ready to go. And after he realized that I wasn't a criminal, we were talking. And I said, "What's this neighborhood like?" And he said, "Well," and he didn't want to answer the question. And I pushed him a little bit. That's kind of my personality, right, Walter? And so, anyway, he says, "There's a few good people and a whole lot of bad people." And I said to myself, what kind of mistake did I make? But I've been here ever since, added on to it. The point of my story is I invested in Warren County, not because of any other reason, but I thought Warren County was on the rise. And it is, and it has been on the rise, and so was the farms. Okay, our next speaker is Sarah Saber, and she's going to talk about excessive spending in relation to FOIA. She'll probably, knowing Sarah, she'll probably throw a few more things in there too. Sarah's one of our new folks. She dove right in with the farms, very impressive young lady, and I think you'll enjoy her talk, okay?
Hi. I'm Sarah Saber. I live at 90 Green Drive. It's funny, he's telling that story, and I actually moved here for, the exact opposite reasons, to get away from people. But I'll start off. Some of you were present at the August 18th Board of Supervisors meeting, and you may remember that I'm one of the individuals who spoke up initially about my concerns about POSF and the allegations being made at that time. Mr. Mabe, you may also recall my August 26th email following up and requesting more information, and thank you for your response. Shortly thereafter, I connected with Jonathan, who was running for the POSF board. We both had similar interests in ensuring our community in Shenandoah Farms remained as it was, an independent, rural mountain community. With us being in the same district, I piggybacked on his efforts and ran as alternate for our district. We both were elected and are two of the 6 new board members at POSF. Personally, I believe the setup of POSF suits our community perfectly. Those who have an interest in becoming involved have several opportunities to do so. You're not forced to. But our status as volunteers and our approach working as a team almost force board members to truly have a vested interest in being a part. Additionally, it requires members to do their due diligence, to learn the history, and respect others' viewpoints, to collaborate and work efficiently in the board. Since becoming involved, my own misconceptions have been addressed, and it's fairly understandable how some individuals may have confusion or concerns, because frankly, the setup is quite tricky to grasp. Improving this communication and transparency within our community is one of my goals in being involved, and I believe the attempts by others to disband and weaken the perception of POSF as the existing advisory board is a travesty based simply on the accessibility to any individual community member like myself to become involved. Of course, it requires some personal accountability and obviously a time dedication to serve on the board. As someone who has personally been involved in several other nonprofit organizations, including over 5,000 volunteer hours in the past 6 years, not everyone is able to make that sacrifice, and I can certainly empathize with that. However, it is a fairly minimal requirement to sacrifice one evening or one morning a month to attend a meeting if you really have a vested interest in the future of your community. This all being said, in understanding how minimal the POSF budget is and the relatively low funding availability to use in achieving my and other board members' goals, the excessive spending incurred due to the FOIA requests and public allegations is certainly a challenge and a concern. POSF does not fall under FOIA because it's not publicly funded. The hired attorney advised POSF not to respond to any FOIA requests regarding POSF as they're not applicable and overly demanding. However, a decision was made about the second FOIA request we received that concerned POSF to provide the requested documents as a courtesy and to allow for transparency to what was deemed to be a concerned community member. All other applicable FOIA requests have been satisfied as requested. However, this concerned community member has more so seemed to have a vested interest in spreading misinformation and reducing public confidence in POSF by releasing only parts of documents or documents out of context. Not only does this cause significant unnecessary financial expenditures in an already small budget, it forces the small team behind POSF, made up of our trusted bookkeeper, secretary, and our volunteer board, to spend more time on legal issues than other issues that need to be addressed and have a direct impact on our community. As someone who moved here to get away from Fairfax, I can assure you that my interests as a volunteer board member will continue to remain for the best interests of Shenandoah Farms community, and I have confidence in my fellow board members to ensure this betterment as well. And quite simply, should they ever stray, myself included, we serve on the board at the discretion of community elections. There is no better choice to represent the community of Shenandoah Farms than the actual individuals who live there, who must be elected by their neighbors and other Shenandoah Farms members. I'm not interested in wasting my time on what many have been calling a witch hunt to satisfy any false narratives. I'm sure that may not make the witch hunters happy to hear after they personally messaged me following the last meeting to invite me to join their hypothetical new advisory board, which, as Mr. May mentioned to me, did not exist at that time. But I'm sure I made the correct choice, and I intend to remain with POSF, where I believe my time will make the most significant impact. We're happy to provide the Board of Supervisors with any information they may need from us to clear up any questions they have or assist however we can. As you mentioned, definitely clearing up the confusion of how it all operates is one of my goals in the future. Thank you.
Very good, sir. Okay. The next speaker.
Mr. Rinaldi?
Yes.
I got a question. So POSF, you said it's not subject to FOIA under your legal representation. Caitlin, we provide 10% of their money to 10% of the overall, so it's like $83,000 a year. Would that not, because it's public funds, require them to be under FOIA?
There is the FOIA Advisory Council did issue an opinion, and if you'll give me 1 minute, I'll pull it so I will not misquote it. But what it boils down to is whether or not the POSF is considered a public body under the FOIA Act and that definition. And what the FOIA Council said is that if an agency or a group is, their majority of funds is principally funded by public funds, then they are considered a public body for the purposes of FOIA and are subject to FOIA.
Okay, that's,
That's what I thought.
Okay.
So I feel like there probably is a misconception, especially because it seemed like that may have been legal advice that the POSF received saying that FOIA was not.
Yeah, our impression of that was, when all this started, we hired an attorney to monitor us because we didn't want to mess up, okay? So we took that forward-thinking action. So then our attorney told us that because the POSF Inc. checking account, the one that's non-sanitary district funds, was exempt from FOIA. So when it came up for that request, the office manager asked me about it, and I said, well, what did the attorney say? And you know, the attorney says, well, that you're not under FOIA for that account. And I said, well, okay, don't give it to him. And then after thinking about it for a while, I said, well, let's go ahead and turn it, let's give it to them to be nice, to be more transparent, let's give it to them. You got to remember the stress that we were under with all that stuff, plus our regular work. So we went ahead and turned it over to them the second time. I'm glad that's clarified up because we were going off the advice of our council. Yeah.
The other thing I would just mention is in the management agreement, in paragraph 24, there's actually an agreement that POSF will follow FOIA and the Conflict of Interest Act.
Yeah, the FOIA, I read that, and I took it as for tax, income from tax revenue. Okay, that's the way I took it. But in the future, we know better now, so we'll do it. I have no problem in giving any FOIA request, but like I say, under advice from council. So I'll have a discussion with him about that maybe tomorrow. Any other?
So if I'm not mistaken, y'all have received a new FOIA request here just shortly.
A few days ago.
A few days ago. You'll be fulfilling this request?
Are we going to what?
Are you going to fulfill the request?
Yeah, that was shown to me, I believe, Saturday or Sunday.
Yes,
and we will, our bookkeeper, the guy that puts it all together, will give us an estimate of what it should cost, and we'll provide that estimate back to the people that want it, and they agree to it, then we'll produce it.
Thank you.
I think we're correct in charging for this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do have the ability to charge reasonable fees.
Okay. So we're within the guidelines for that. Any other questions on the FOIA stuff? Yes.
Actually, I have a question. We actually did work with FOIA in the state of Virginia. We worked with the ombudsman from the state of Virginia in addressing these FOIA requests. And Adam from FOIA referred to me by Emily. I spoke to him in great length about this in the FOIA and what we needed to do. He said that POSF Inc. monies that are not publicly funded, Ralph, I was talking to her, that are not publicly funded do not fall under the FOIA Act. So we don't have to release them. POSF Inc., the sanitary district public money, of course, is. He said, but I've never seen it go before a judge, and I don't think you guys want to be the first one to really cut hairs on this. You are legally not required to give it to them, but you probably ought to, just so you're not splitting hairs. But we did work with the state of Virginia, the FOIA representative, and the ombudsman on all these requests to make sure we are doing the right things. It wasn't because nobody told us to or not to. We were being guided by the Board of Supervisors or state level people that were guiding us on what was the right response, as well as 3 attorneys have advised us that of the same things.
Okay. I guess we got all that straight, right?
Just to clarify, you are going to provide the information?
Yes.
Okay.
We already
have.
We have filed it already? Or we have it
all the
together?
information on our POSF Inc. that we weren't sure about. We voluntarily gave that to them in the last few FOIA requests. We have released everything to them.
The last request that came in that Walter brought up, our bookkeeper is working on that, and they will be given that information, or at least given the estimate, and then the rest, if they agree to it, then they can come get it. We normally don't produce the document until they approve the amount, but in this case, we wanted to get the documents good to go so that there was no delay. So that's another extra thing that we've done in this.
I appreciate that. You're getting rid of the perception.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's not throw up red flags, that's what it's all
No,
about.
I agree, and like I say, that's the way it went down. Any other questions? Okay, the next speaker is Patrick Skelly. Patrick has been in the Shenandoah Farms area forever. He actually worked for the developers in Shenandoah Farms for a period of time. Patrick is going to talk about what we would like to see, the involvement of the Board of Supervisors, our involvement with you and county staff, and looking for your recommendations and guidance. That's what we've done in the past, and we wish to continue doing that. He's also going to talk about the Board of Supervisors communications and the Shenandoah Farms overall population. All right. So Patrick, you're up.
Patrick Skelly, 88 Mosby Meadow Lane. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the fact that we're having this meeting. And also, just to commiserate a little bit with you all, having been thrown into the deep end of the pool, and having to come up to speed, as Walter said.
Yeah, go ahead and take it off.
Okay, yeah. Having to process the amount of information that is necessary, as it would be for anybody coming on a new job. But your responsibilities are legion, and I wouldn't want to have to do it. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. This may be a little bit disjointed, so I apologize if it is. I'm bouncing around a little bit. One of the things I wanted to mention relative to the contractors, you know, we've been lucky to be able to find people within the community to do things like the grass cutting. And what we've found in the past is that we get way more bang from the buck from people who are invested not only as contractors but also as residents. Frank Journey, whom we saw, who's unfortunately passed since, used to do all the landscaping, he and his wife, without charging us at all. And that's the sort of response, and we're getting that same sort of response with the people that cut the grass now also. And I guess that makes sense, if you had to think about it. It should also be mentioned that the Sanitary District was formed at a request from us, from the Board of Supervisors. Ralph brought that to Doug Stanley and said, this budget is way bigger than what we as a volunteer organization want to be responsible for. And I didn't even realize that until relatively recently, that Ralph was the progenitor behind that. But so it's not like a government agency came in and decided that we should be taken over. We went to the government agency, and we appreciate everything that your guidance and your help. And again, as I said, we don't want to have to do it. That puts you guys in the firing line, unfortunately, but that comes with the job. So, a gravel road is the most expensive road to maintain, far more than paving. It takes a lot to get it paved, but once it is, hence our objective is to be able to turn as much of it over to the state as possible once it's brought up to state standards. You know, it's a work in progress and it's slow. My understanding is that our sanitary district fees are perhaps the second lowest in the county. We have the benefit of having a lot of residents, so that helps, but we also have a lot of infrastructure to maintain. We've had some people say, why aren't these roads paved, you know, without any conception of what it takes to bring that about? We had, at one point I remember someone saying that someone from moving in towards the city, as far as the fees, and they said, is that a month? And I said, no, that's a year. But that's the sort of thing that can be expected if you come from the other side of the mountain in terms of what living cost is, which is why so many of us are happy to live out here, not in there, I suppose, even to the extent that we may work in there, but we're a bedroom community. Board members are here for the continuity of the community. Our volunteers are part of the community, voted in by the community within their district, and thus their agenda is for the farms, not for personal gain. We serve at the direction or at the discretion of elections for the sanitary district, and there is no better choice to represent the community of the sanitary district than the actual people who live there. We serve as an advisory board to Warren County. Our existence allows them not to need to micromanage Shenandoah farms. And we would like to think that we can be trusted and communicated through our decisions and input through the Board of Supervisors. And would like to think that we get the best bang for the buck. What we need from the Board of Supervisors is involvement and guidance when requested, timely response to emails, reciprocal respect, and transparency in our ongoing relationship and partnership with the Board of Supervisors. And I think we're getting that. I think we're coming to that. In general, the Board of Supervisors has expressed concerns that we weren't connected enough to the community. But recent events have allowed for even greater opportunity for transparency and community member involvement. As it was mentioned, we've got 6 new board members, for which we're very grateful. And they weren't solicited, they came voluntarily. They came down out of the mountain to be heard. Partly, as Jonathan had said, in response to some of the things that have been floating about on social media and so forth and so on. Other questions?
In terms of Board of Supervisors communications and communications with POSF, I have done some organizational stuff in my past, and I think there's a gap between reporting. I don't know how frequently the POSF has communications with the Board of Supervisors, but I think that a more frequent reporting exchange would alleviate a lot of the confusion. And Mr. Long.
How would you recommend that we do that?
Well, I was talking to Dr. Daly, and maybe we provide a report of what our financial accounting is on a quarterly basis as to what's in your funds. You have that, and then you provide to us what you've been spending and what you've been spending your money on. And if it is heavily legal, we can see that it's heavily legal. And then there's a lot more transparency and communication between both bodies. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I've felt that maybe that's one of the issues, is that there's just a lapse in communication and reporting between the two entities.
One point I didn't make is that we're your advisory group, even though we work for the farms.
Well, the only time that I've personally seen the advisory group was during a budget season. And so maybe we need to do that more frequently, so that it isn't just during the budget season.
So you guys have an open invitation to come to our regular monthly meetings on Saturday, Second Saturday every month.
Right.
And when you come into that door, you get a copy of all of our financial reports for that month.
Well, one of the problems with that is that if 3 of us go, it's considered a meeting, so we can do that. But it's a good idea if we could.
What we can do is, there's a quarterly report that the sanitary district manager gives POSF at their Saturday meetings, okay? In that report, the sanitary district manager will go over basically all business that he's involved in, whether it's equipment, financial, etc. Since Mr. Childress left, we've sort of been in a transition period. I know we're going to be interviewing for a person starting on Thursday. With that in mind, we understand that during this interim period that we're going to miss a quarterly report. Okay, and we understand that. But what we can do too is what Joe was just saying. On our agenda, on the back of our agenda for every meeting is our POSF budget. It has what we've spent, and what line item it was spent on. It's a just pretty simple column, it's easy to read. When the sanitary district manager begins his quarterly reports, we can give him a quarterly report of our finances. If you want it monthly, I'm okay with that too. It's whatever you want.
Everything monthly would work. I mean,
I'm
if
happy
you got
with
it and you can generate it. If you can generate it easily for us monthly, that would be good.
Yeah,
You have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, we have our monthly budgets, which are fairly pared down. My recommendation would be on our quarterly budgets that we provide, we'll start incorporating fiscal annotations for any amounts that are greatly different than our expected and estimated. So if our actuals are different, we could potentially just do a little asterisk and a quick note to explain why the difference exists. Because I think that's one of the things that's, it's not difficult to find once you understand how the meeting is presented, but it's very tiresome to go back into the meeting minutes to kind of put the story together as to why that difference exists. So that's one of the things we can do as well. I like that.
That sounds fair to me.
Dr. Dale?
So we'll have Mr. Berry send you the quarterly report for September, the end of September, as soon as he gets it. We'll get you that report.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about missing one report. I checked with some of the folks about, I was concerned about actually having all the snow removal equipment tested and ready to go, the routes gone over. Those were the things I was kind of concerned about. And because everything is interim, I was having a little patience on the quarterly report. So, you know.
He can get both of those for you.
Okay. We have here just a snapshot of it. It's easy, it's simple to read. For example, I don't know, just pick one. How about community center? We've budgeted $13,036 for the community center. Currently, we've spent $1,925.21, and we have a balance of $11,110.79. That's the kind of report you'll get for each line item. It's very, very easy to print out. We print it out for every meeting, so it's really pretty good.
I think that would be helpful to everybody. And we're just totally putting everything out there. It's all transparent. Everybody sees the numbers. They can do the math, and we can all say, here's the information, and we've provided it. And I think it'll help everybody and see and just get more clarification. I think doing it here, since you have a problem getting people to come to your meetings, they do watch this, and it's video, whether they're watching it now live or they can go back on our website and watch it. It'll be there, so if they don't want to come or can't come to your meetings, then it's available here, so that's another avenue of transparency and getting your information out. Plus, we could probably take that and put it, make a little, report of the sanitary district on the webpage as well. It's already there.
Yeah, and there are expenditure reports from the sanitary district that are on that webpage, and Mr. Childress would provide me with even quarterly expenditure reports that I would put up and update. But as soon as the September one is out, I will be able to post that as well.
Okay. We just need to be more diligent about saying that people can go to that webpage and see a lot more than what maybe they realize at this point.
We publish on our website, which has greatly improved in the last year and a half. We struggled with that website. We kept having members, volunteers coming in to work on it. Then they'd work on it for a while, find out it was more than they could handle, and then they would leave. And so we were struggling. But we've gotten caught up on the website. We have a guy that, our bookkeeper, that will start maintaining the website a little bit. We've switched our host because of the payment arrangement. Was always using my credit card or Paul's credit card, and so you'll see my name on expenditures a few times. That's the reason. So with all that, the improvements that we've made on our web, and we can put that financial information on there. We print all of our meeting agendas, and once our meeting minutes are approved, they go on our website. So the information's out there.
On your agendas that you put out, are they now, are you up to date on them, is what I'm getting at?
I believe we are.
Okay, and also the meeting minutes, you've started putting those up on there, and it's actually better than it was.
There's a drag on the delay for the meeting minutes, because we don't post them until they're approved. So meeting minutes taken at the first Saturday would be approved on the fourth Thursday. So you got 2 weeks in there where you have that, and then they would be approved on Thursday night. Lisa doesn't come in until the following Thursday, and that's when they get put on. So you have almost 3 weeks delay there.
Yeah, but people understand that when you know it.
Yeah.
So that'll help. I mean, your webpage has improved a lot since the first of the year, because the first of the year is when I actually started looking at it.
Well, thank you. We've had several different people working on it, and we did have some, we did struggle with that, but it's coming around.
When you come and give us reports, I don't know if you can do it or we can do it or not. I know that we can generate it and it can go out on the webpage, and it gets generated for the Roll Examiner puts it on their webpage. And for an example, the last meeting that we had that was contentious, 1,600 people looked at that. That's a video. That's a big number. Normally we'll get 200 or 300 people that'll look at it, but 1,600 is big. So people are interested there. It's COVID related. They don't want to get out, a lot of them, but they are interested, and we're seeing it.
We've put out, to try to reach out to our community, we've put out a couple of different, one on your recommendation, a couple of surveys that went out. And Warren County has put out surveys through planning and zoning over the last few years. We got approximately a 15% response, which is actually almost the same as what planning and zoning got on their SurveyMonkey survey. Also, Warren County put out a survey concerning Shenandoah Farms before the county moved in to help us out, okay? After we requested the county to come in, they did a survey of the residents of Shenandoah Farms. They too got about a 15% response. So that's disappointing that not only Shenandoah Farms, but the county itself had that kind of low response. But I guess in closing, was there anybody? I lost my agenda. Everybody. Did everybody spoke? Okay. I guess in closing, unless the other board members want to say a few things.
I'd like to say one thing. Like our website, for example, it's getting harder and harder to get to it because there's all these other domains out there that are putting up similar names to us. So it took me an hour just to find it the other day. I was looking for information for my report here. The perception to me is that's malicious.
What is your website address?
ShenandoahFarms.org.
Okay, so it's http://
Shenandoah Farms, all one word?
Yeah.
.org.
That's a good point that Joe brought up on, I think she's got 3 different websites set up, and that's how I first met Jonathan, because he had a road issue. So he goes on Google, goes in it, and got referred back to Walter. And then that put everything into a tailspin on the actual mechanics of looking at a road issue.
Like I said, with why I got involved in the community, when I put in Shenandoah Farms, I don't expect to find 11 different things, and only one of them being where I need to be and the other being Warren County itself. You have Shenandoah Farms Civil Association, which only exists cyber, all these things. It's like, okay, well, let me go here and post up what's going on and what I need help with. And then it's, oh, wait a minute, you aren't even on the property of owners of Shenandoah Farms Incorporated. How did I end up here? And then you're calling me, emailing, and it's, I just went to what said Shenandoah Farms. I was in the wrong place completely, but it was what's going on now with a bunch of different domains.
Yeah, and to continue, it's not just the domains. Excuse me, she's actually reserved in that Virginia SEC database. You can reserve a name before you actually pay the fee to, start the entity. She's done that to several names that bear very similar resemblance to.
Well, let's try, no offense, let's try to keep the names out of it.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned their names. This has been a concern that has been brought up. And I think it goes to the confusion of how people reach us.
Right.
So for anybody who's watching this potentially, just to understand that we're the property owners of Shenandoah Farms, Inc. And that's, as Lisa stated, our website.
On our webpage, you said each sanitary district has a section. Can they click on that to get to web pages as well?
So what's interesting is that as we were talking about the website, I'm the administrator of the Warren County website, and I just added a link directly to their website, to our website. So if they get to our website, they have a direct link to y'all's correct website now. So
That's excellent.
Now, one of the things that I keep saying to people is there may be some validity to some of the questions, and it's because of perception. My suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, you can do whatever you want, but I think that Shenandoah Farms should talk to the people that are really giving you a problem, because they either believe it so bad that they're causing grief and aggravation, and you need to help fix it. Just a second, just a second.
Joe, go first on this one.
Yeah, no.
I was invited to one of those sites.
I'm sorry?
I was invited to one of those community sites where these issues were being brought up. And just an example, one of the things that kept being brought up was the sanitation something. It was another word that she used. It wasn't sanitation district, but it was a sanitation something. She kept referring to that. And so I went on there and I explained to her that this is a legal term. This is something that was formed by the state of Virginia as a legal entity to collect taxes to pay for maintenance of the community. And we went back and forth. I did not sleep for an entire weekend. It went on for an entire weekend. And every time she would bring up a point, I would respond to it. And there was another fellow that lives up above me that was also responding to it. And it was like she was, every time we would give her accurate information, she would make up a new thing that wasn't accurate. And so we would correct that. And it just, it's like a snowball. It keeps rolling and rolling and getting bigger and bigger, and you can't satisfy her. You cannot satisfy her.
Okay, that's, the same thing. It was posted to PEF with the Matlock versus County 1995 and raising fees, trying to raise the fee to $100 at the time. Post up the legal of what that case actually was to, we weren't even a sanitary district and all that, and you tell them what they don't want to hear and you end up blocked on Facebook. So.
Right. Yeah, they kicked me off after about a week.
I don't suggest doing anything on Facebook.
Yeah.
Not this stuff. I think it's good to wish people happy birthday, happy anniversary, and keep up with what's going on in your family. Anything beyond that, it's open game, and you're in a hole you're never gonna get out of. So
Yeah,
that's just my thought on
What I'm
it.
saying is we can't get together with them because there's no
Well,
getting
and
together.
maybe we can. That's the thing. Maybe we need to find a way to get a common ground of and looking at things and saying, let's sit down together with neutral people to remediate it. People there that have the background to be able to answer questions that both sides have, and sit down together. I mean, you were in a quandary over, is this true, is this not true? So you took the initiative to find out for yourself.
Well, I think that's the most interesting part of this issue, is that they were given the opportunity and they did choose to be involved. And then they stepped down for evidently no real good reason, and then started this propaganda of misinformation. So, I mean, the invitation is certainly still open. They're more than welcome to join us. We'd be happy to sit down and explain to them. But as I mentioned, you have to work as a team. You know, you can't be on a board and just be out for yourself. And if you're trying to, cause conflicts with your neighbors, it's never going to help you in the long run. You know, I could have run it against Jonathan, but
I'm not saying let's try to recruit them on the board. I'm saying let's try to sit down.
And just talk.
Not on Facebook.
But you're expecting rational response, and we're not getting that.
I'm a glass half full person.
Okay.
I'll be the first to say that.
Explaining what's going on correctly, legally, and trying to inform you all as well. But I think, politely, I don't think that I'm going to be able to get through to them because I don't think they want to hear any of the answers that are correct. So at that point, we're hoping that y'all will mitigate that for us. We think y'all have done a good job, and the finances are open. The money thing is kind of comical because the budget's put out twice a month, just like we said, we'll give it to you quarterly, but it's put out twice a month for them to look at too. And so everything's categorized. Our spending is determined by y'all and not by us. You have approved our budget, but I don't think that sometimes the perception that you're going to get a rational response from irrational people is a mistake too. And that's about as polite as I can say it.
Perceptions are what they are, and I'll be totally honest with you. I got in trouble with Mr. Rinaldi at the first meeting of the year because I went down and I rode around. If you're going to have a whole list of roads on for me to appropriate a lot of money out, I want to see what I'm doing. I try to do my homework and educate myself the best I can. And I saw 400 feet of Old Oak Road that was in Clark County, and I thought, did Warren County pay for roads in Clark County? I'll be, and not trying to stir up a hornet's nest, but I too thought, is that legal and should we be doing that? Because one thing I heard repeatedly, and I didn't understand it, when I was running for this office was people of my district saying they were tired of their tax money going out there. And I couldn't figure out what the heck they were talking about. I've come to realize what they're talking about. 25% of the entire county's money is going to improve your roads. So it's just a fact. I'm not saying, anything negative about it at this point, but we are obligated to answer the questions of the entire county because the entire county is having their tax dollars spent on your locality. So, if we, we need to work together to educate the whole county because I didn't realize that.
I just want to make mention that part of the road is in Warren County now.
It is now, but it wasn't.
Well, no, it wasn't, and Ralph explained that before.
Right.
Okay.
But, the average person that goes down there that has any knowledge of road construction at all would see there was no transition line where it stopped from one county to the next. So there's a problem of perception and how our monies are being spent. So I get it from someone who had no idea that was being done. that's how things roll, and a small thing gets to be a big thing without the education behind it. And there's where I think communication and education and working together to better educate on the questions that I have been asked repeatedly from the people. I don't know them. I'm still confused as heck over this POSF and how I can live on one side of the road and be in it, and you can be on the other side of the road and not be in it. I'm sorry, as much as it keeps being told to me, I still don't have it yet, but maybe since it took you a couple of years, in a couple of years I'll have it. But that's my thing. I think we have to try to do a better job of communicating, and we just have to be patient with each other and set aside our hurt feelings over what has transpired so far in order to move forward to get this done.
I would like to say, I think of how long it takes to get acclimated to a new job, and to full acclimation doesn't come in 1 year's time. And you guys have had 10 months in this new position, and another year from now, I know that your perceptions will be a lot different than they are now, just based on the amount of exposure you're going to have to the machinations of everything that goes on. And that's understandable. And that's why
a lot of it is not just you or Shenandoah Farms, it's every one of the sanitary districts and every one of the problems that are happening out there.
And that was one of, and that goes to the point that you're responsible for a lot more than just Shenandoah Farms. That's just only one piece of the pie that you guys are having to deal with every day. And we appreciate that. And I would like to think that that's why we're here, to help in that process of us understanding how all these things work, because it is convoluted and it is confusing.
Yes. I have a suggestion on that. Years ago, they used to have a sanitary district summit meeting, and they brought everybody in, all the chairman, vice chair, and other members. They brought them in, and right in this room, and the county made a presentation to us on, to all the sanitary districts on various things. One was FOIA, one was purchasing, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to suggest that you consider establishing a sanitary district commission that could meet twice a year and go over some of these items, because I guarantee you, when we had the sanitary district meetings before, the same issues that we had, other districts had the same issues. And it was kind of comforting to hear that, hey, other people have the same issues we got, so we're not alone in this, okay? And that might help you to get used to the different sanitary districts. It would be great for us to all meet each other and go through that process. Those summit meetings were great. I don't know why it stopped, but I will say before we leave, and thank you for your time. This has been a great discussion, but I would like to reiterate what Bruce said, and let's get somebody down there to examine our books. I don't care whether it's a county staff person or someone else. Get them down there, look at our books, and also look at Warren County's handling of the Shenandoah Farms monies. You know, so it's two sides of a coin here. So we're responsible to report and be the fiduciary folks of about $85,000 to $90,000, and Warren County has the rest of it. So, and it's not only the sanitary district fees that we are collecting, and I say we because it's Shenandoah Farms money, okay? It's also the new construction fees. You know, there's a ton of construction going on in there. One year in the farms when Joe was property manager, we took in like 80 building permits in 1 year. So there's other funds coming into this district. And while we're on it, I would also like to get a reporting on Public Works, how much they're billing Shenandoah Farms when it's deemed necessary where we need a little help. Okay, so I would like to get a detailed report on that monthly. I think that would fit into your payroll operation, so it shouldn't be that hard to do. So I would like to see that, because that's our responsibility to monitor our expenses, and a bill from Public Works is an expense to us. So I would like to see that tightened up a little bit.
I would also like to understand what assets that the sanitary district owns in terms of equipment, because I'm not clear on what equipment you own and what belongs, because it's my understanding if it belongs
We don't
to...
have possession of any of that. It's all, the county has it.
Well, Mike Berry would be able to provide.
But it belongs to you,
Yes.
correct?
No, it's owned and paid for by the sanitary district.
Correct.
Correct? So it is, in effect, Shenandoah Farms money, okay? It's tax money that was to purchase the motor grader, a backhoe, a couple of tractors, some salt, chip spreaders for snow removal, things like that, some trucks. There should be an equipment inventory list that Warren County has. I think I would start at the finance department for that.
But they are yours, you own.
Yes, we own, the sanitary district owns that equipment. So if it's rented out, and this was a big stumbling block that I had with your former administrators, both of them. That was a big stumbling block, is I didn't want that equipment that we pay for rented out and damaged on rental, and then comes back and we got to fix it. That was a big issue. Then when Blue Mountain decided not to have the county do their road maintenance, then that knocked off a lot of the problems with lending equipment out. Now, we do rent Public Works equipment occasionally, and one of their operators comes down, and we get billed for that, okay, and we pay it. I don't think there's been too many times where we've rented stuff to Public Works. But as a former business person, I'm wondering, what's the revenue for Public Works? What's their equipment? What's their inventory list? And how did that get paid for? Did the county set that up? Or did sanitary district's funds go into that as a loan to be paid back or whatever? I don't know, because we've never been told how Public Works was set up.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions for him.
Mr. Berry is on the phone.
I think it would be a whole lot easier if Mr. Barry and Mr. Rinaldi sat down and
Yeah,
talked about
we can do
this
that,
and
yeah.
trying to do it three-way.
I'll report back to my people and...
Come back and talk to Mike anytime.
Hey, Mike, have you been hearing?
That sounds like a discussion.
That's what I called in.
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, he's been on the phone.
I can hear Ralph pretty good. Some of the other folks are will tell us they're not on it. But anyway, if you have any questions on the letters, you can hear me.
Yeah, so they were looking to see if they could receive a listing of all of the equipment that Shenandoah Farm Sanitary District owns versus the equipment that the Public Works Department owns, as well as the funding that went into purchasing both sets of equipment.
Okay. All of Shenandoah Farms equipment has been paid by Shenandoah Farm Sanitary District tax, and all Public Works equipment has been paid for by the county. I heard Mr. Rinaldi ask about sanitary districts. No sanitary districts have been involved in purchase of county equipment.
And does the County Public Works Department still lease out certain Shenandoah Farms owned equipment to other sanitary districts and then charge back, or?
We haven't used any. Mr. Childers spoke to Mr. Rinaldi about possibly using a grader. We've never taken a truck out of Shenandoah Farms and used it in any other district. And the grader has not been used by any of my workers in other districts. We've had, our guys working for the farm But we don't, of course, we wouldn't charge them for their own equipment. We charge them for the hours and the minutes they work there.
That's right.
Were there any other questions you all have for Mr. Berry?
No, I'm good. Not right now.
Yeah, so I think the general consensus of the board is that they would like you to sit down with Mr. Rinaldi sometime in the next couple of weeks and kind of get that information to him. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, that's no problem.
All right. Thank you.
I'd be interested in the answers to those questions as well.
Yeah, me too.
Is there anything else from the board? Mr. Daly?
No, sir.
Caitlin?
No, sir.
Board is okay? Audience?
Well, somehow, we need to put an end to these FOIA requests, okay? At some place, we have to satisfy curiosity or whatever it is that's doing this. It's putting a lot of stress, especially on our office manager, and it's putting a lot of stress on the rest of us. I mean, we're all volunteers, and some of us have other jobs, and so we have full lives above and beyond POSF and Shenandoah Farms. And I know I volunteered for it, but I didn't volunteer for this.
I understand that, Paul.
You know? You can relate.
The FOIA requests are coming from citizens within the Shenandoah district.
And what I'm saying, the perception is, this is malicious. It's not out of curiosity, it's not out of want to know, it's not out of, I think you did something wrong, it's just malicious.
The other part to that scenario that Joe brought up is I do know we have to follow FOIA regulations, and we will. There's no problem with that at all, because it is a requirement. But you talk about perception. Do you know Shenandoah Farms got over 20 FOIA requests since January? So I'm going to go talk to some guy and say, hey, you know, you will fit right in with our board. Would you be interested in joining? He said, I don't think so. Why is that? Well, look at all the FOIA requests that y'all are getting. You must be doing something wrong. That's perception, and that's wrong perception, way worse than a relative cutting the grass for under $12 an hour.
Amen.
So there's the perception.
Amen.
With FOIA, is there a limit on how many the same person can apply for?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So I'm also the FOIA officer for Warren County. There have been times when Ms. Blansett has sent me an email question regarding FOIA requests that she has received. There was a time, I think a year or so ago, that Warren County received back-to-back FOIA officers from the same individual. And I had reached out to Alan Gernhardt, who was the executive director of the FOIA Council at that time. And unfortunately, there is no limit and there is no stipulation regarding alleged abuse of the FOIA system, as it were. So unfortunately, there is no limit to one individual requesting.
Because like, as Ralph just said, it messes with the perception of the board as a whole. But it's not just the FOIA request, because yes, that's legally has to be done. But when you're obtaining domain names and trying to mimic what you're going after, there's more to this than just wanting information. There's a bigger agenda behind this. And I don't think they know the agenda behind it.
And part of that is you were trying to find out what is going on all around.
Well, I'll tell you, look at this. The proof is in the pudding. And you look at Shenandoah Farms, that's why we brought that video in here. And I know I told Walter it was about a 15-minute presentation, and I think I was off on that. I'm sorry, Walter. But if you look at the perception, what we've done for Shenandoah Farms, and when I say we, I'm talking about the county, the farms itself, POSF, different residents that were on that video volunteered their time to speak. So when I say we, it's a whole bunch of different groups, and we all should be proud of what's happened in the farms. I know I am.
Well, and two of the people in that video are now deceased. And the people that originally formed the community are almost all gone. I don't think any of them are left anymore. And so we stand on their shoulders, and I think we owe something to them for the work that they did that we could build on and keep going. And, that's why we're here. It's, we like the community we live in. We enjoy I'm an artist. I moved in there so I could do my artwork peacefully. It's not peaceful right now.
I guess one more thing. I said that a couple of times, I'm sorry. But I guess what I'm trying to say is all these people here have an interest in their community, a positive interest in this community. They are not trying to pull this community down. We are builders, not demolition crews. And that's what we're here to do, is to continue the building out of Shenandoah Farms as far as that infrastructure. My main goal when I joined this board, because I live right across from Lake, and I used to see those jalopies come down Lake Drive all tore up. Now you know what I see? I see Cadillac Escalades, I see Tahoes, Suburbans, etc. And if you think about it, the infrastructure of that community has improved, I don't know how many %. And we wish to keep that momentum going. That statement was made at budget time with you guys. Let's keep the ball rolling, keep the effort going. I think that was Bruce's coin phrase. But that's why we're here. I mean, I got to get up in the morning at 3 o'clock to go pour some concrete, but that's okay. I'm here at this meeting. Jonathan leaves his house probably 4:30 or 5, okay? So that's why we're here, is because we have the passion for the farms. And when someone interferes with the passion, it's upsetting, okay? So
I respect your passion. Anyone else have a comment?
I'd just like to thank y'all for your time tonight.
You're welcome.
It's a little bit long and we're all set, but
I have one more thing. Oh, you got something?
I was just going to say, you need to put the time in to get things in the right direction, and I don't worry about time. So I feel for you. Hope you have a safe drive in the morning, but I don't worry about my time at least.
Well, I've got one more thing to say, and it's go vote if you haven't. Thank you very much. Adjourned.